have our agenda starting with speaker number 1, ATM Ty Patten. By the end of 2021, Ty had been diagnosed with COVID by the Baldwin VA facility, given a handful of various pills that were all over-the-counter supplements, such as vitamin D3, vitamin C, zinc, and others, and was instructed to self-isolate, which is easy for a single man living alone. Within 10 days, the VA and the Seminole County Health Department cleared him of COVID, and he was released from their oversight. However, while quarantined, Ty used his time to conduct extensive research on his own into COVID, which led to research into the U.S. CDC, Center for Disease Control, the WHO, World Health Organization, and other such groups. Help me welcome ATM Ty Patten with his speech titled, "Fool Me Once, Shame on Thee."
Fool me once, shame on thee. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and members at the head table, we are approaching a second wave of masks. Now, I feel sorry for, and my sympathy goes out to those who lost loved ones due to COVID. But some of my research showed that when the authorities were ranking up those numbers, just ratcheting them as high as they could put them in order to take more control away from us so they could dominate over us, many of the deaths were as a comorbidity. And by the response of the CDC itself, when it actually conducted the research of the first 146,000 deaths in the United States, by their own numbers, it was only about 6% that actually died from COVID itself. And many of those who did pass away were elderly, people my age and older, and they had comorbidity. They had diabetes, they had heart problems, they had other issues that were contributing to the number of 2.6 in addition to COVID. It's important to understand that when people say, well, I'm just following the science, I think we can all agree that science is when you actually hear both sides or all sides of the story. So when I talk about fool me once, shame on thee, fool me twice, shame on thee, Professor and wordsmith Jordan Kamenker, can you explain that for those of us who may not fully understand it in 30 seconds or less, please?
Suppose someone you trust does something skunky. You have no reason to suspect they'd ever do it. They do something skunky to you, and they caught you off guard. Shame on them. You trusted them. They come around the next day and try to do the same thing. You shouldn't be caught unawares. If you are, shame on you. And a good example of that is Charlie Brown and Lucy. And she holds the football, and he falls for it. The next day, he shouldn't fall for it.
Thank you very much. So thinking about that, when we have a situation where our government actually fools us, and if anybody is naive enough to think that our government doesn't, there are many, many examples. And I'll extract just one from my research, and that was the Tuskegee experiment. That's where our government injected syphilis. And for those of you who don't know, syphilis is a transmittable sexual disease. And they used 600 black men in a poor community. They volunteered to do it, but there were 600 of them. 399 actually were injected with syphilis. The other 201 just had a placebo. And it turns out, that was in 1932, it turns out that these individuals were followed and the women, the wives, whoever it was that contracted syphilis from them, some of them got pregnant. And guess what? The children of those women also had syphilis. Now, syphilis is a maniacal disease. It can lead to all types of amputations and even death. We came out with the knowledge in 1962. Now remember, we started this experiment in 1932, and by 1962, we knew, the medical society knew, that a common antibiotic could go ahead and save those lives. It could counter it. And yet, they continued the experiment. They wanted to continue tracking just to see what would happen. Now, I'm sure that when those 600 people, the 600 men volunteered, they had full expectations, and they should have had, that if a cure was found, that they would be cured of it. But that wasn't the case. It continued for 10 years until 1972, and the only reason why it was made public at that point was because of the fact that it was rumored that it was going to leak. And so therefore, they said, you know what, the inner office memorandums indicated that we probably should announce this before we get hit in a hailstorm of ridicule. And so they did. So what happened at that point? Well, at that point, you had a number of deaths that had already occurred. Was it racial? That's up for debate. I just happen to think that it was some sinister bureaucrats. See, I believe that if you have an organization, a company, and there are more than 10 people, you probably have one that will push that limit. Whether it's a salesperson who will do something unethical, or whether it's a research doctor, and the heck with the Hippocratic oath that they will do no harm, because they want to see just exactly how far they can push it. So right now, we are starting round 2 of companies and corporations that are masking up. And we have found enough research, and it has begun to dribble out, to indicate that those masks, even the N95 that's supposed to be so super, it does almost no good. So I want to tell you, fool me once, shame on thee, United States government. Fool me twice, shame on me, fellow Toastmasters.